There's 11 people in, yo.
All right, hold on.
You know me, I get nervous. Oh, here we go. It's working. There's 11 people.
All right. After a long delay, we are live. Jared, how's the connection?
I think it's good.
All right, we're good.
Good.
Thank you guys for joining us. We got 12 people in right now. Welcome back to Have More Than Money. Today, Jared, we're going to be diving into pretty much the most frequently asked questions when it comes to high ticket ecom. We're going to call this a member appreciation, as all of these questions that we're going to be covering are straight from the people who are taking action with it. So, if you guys, you're probably going to get some good insight. I see we got some of the MTM fan with us already. We got Mike P, Nate Brooks, Nick Forza. Let's go, boys. Welcome.
Oh, yeah.
As usual, any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them after.
I mean, of course, after we get through all the questions that
we already got.
But no, honestly, again, guys, this live stream is dedicated to the people that joined our program, that invested in us and are taking action, and better yet, investing in themselves. How many people out there, see guys like Mike and I making money online and just don't do anything with it. So, if you're investing in yourself, you're taking action, then obviously this live stream is dedicated to you.
And yeah, I actually like that you say that too, because when I was first getting my first business off the ground, I used to show a lot of respect to people who would, talk about starting their own business. People who were, who like just that, people who talked about owning a business. And then, when you do it yourself and, you create a successful business, to really garner that kind of respect is by putting in the massive action, the massive work that it takes. And so, it kind of just goes back to that, like, shout out to the people that are really hustling and, you got dreams and, those things aren't going to accomplish themselves.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like if you're someone that, like I said, just isn't a talker, you're someone that said, I've had enough of the chit chat, let's take action. Then, honestly, I'm proud of you, whether you're seeing results or not. As long as you're with the right system, which obviously if you joined us, you're with the right system, then you're going to see results eventually. Just stick with it. So, yeah.
That being said, let's just kind of dive in. So the first question that we got was niches to avoid in high ticket ecom. And I think, John, I'm going to let you kind of start off with this because it's kind of a tricky question. What do you think? Niches to avoid?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, niches to avoid. But honestly, I mean, if you're asking this question in a way, you're looking at it the wrong way, because truth be told, there's a lot of niches that I can tell you to avoid right now that people might be making money drop shipping in, right? Like the only niches I can honestly think of that are probably worth avoiding are general electronics, like, iPhones, PlayStations, Xboxes, maybe even televisions. But for the most part, I mean, it really comes down to the supplier. I've seen students make money in niches that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But at the same time, when you find one supplier in that niche that's willing to take you as a drop shipper, then it's like, how can I tell everyone else not to sell in that niche, if that makes sense? So, in regards to which niches to avoid, my best answer to that would be that there isn't any specific niches to avoid, but if you want the best likelihood of success, then you want to make a store as generic as possible. This way you can pivot to as many niches as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because, there's the task of what niches to avoid is kind of a double-sided question, Niches to avoid, if you would have asked me, 7 months ago, niches to avoid, I would have told you, kitchen appliances, furniture. But, what I've learned from my own experience and the experience of, honestly, some students that we've already been helping is that a lot of niches on the surface are very saturated. Furniture, maybe, like I said, kitchen appliances, things like that. They are very saturated in the sense that there are a lot of suppliers selling them, and there are a lot of suppliers with a lot of retailers selling their brand. But the catch is that if you do the nitty-gritty research, you can find suppliers in that saturated niche that can be profitable. And I've seen it with my own eyes that, I've seen a product type that would have blown my mind. I wouldn't believe you could do 80K in sales in a month. and it does just that. So, I think it comes down to nitty gritty supplier research. And then, like you mentioned, Jared, you're not going to go out and drop ship MacBooks. That's just kind of realistic. But when it comes to starting your store and, creating a niche store, like Jared said, you're not going to make a furniture niche store. That's just not the best way to do it. As most of the people know, the best way to do it is create something generic and broad. So that way you have so many different avenues to explore. And when I say avenues to explore, I don't even mean in terms of finding a certain amount of suppliers to get your store off the ground. I mean, even if you get, say, 90K in sales per month, that could be your cap if you're not broad enough. But, when you have a million different avenues to explore, that's when we get talking, the $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 months that will really scale your business.
I like that you said the surface level comment, because that is like the truest thing. Almost every time I see a beginner dropshipper, they're always coming at us with the most surface level products. It's always products that we've seen before, products that we've tried to call, products that you probably can't even dropship, like generic furniture or just generic anything, right? Couches, tables, chairs. But the people that stick with it long enough, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, what they start to do is they dig deep and pretty much like think about it like, digging for treasure in a way, right? Like if you're on the surface, that's not where the treasure is. You have to dig to find it. And it's the same thing with suppliers, right? Like I said, almost every time when people send me the first batch of suppliers that they have on their site, I can almost guarantee that batch won't be successful. And I'm not saying that, it's 100% won't be successful. I've seen people succeed in the first 5 or 6 suppliers that they launched. But for the most part, the people that are making big money, the screenshots that I might be posting or Mike might be posting, 6 figures plus a month, are people typically that close 10 suppliers, 15 suppliers, 20 suppliers, sometimes even 30 suppliers. Me and Mike have closed over 30 suppliers each for single stores. And both of those stores now at this point are doing well over 6 figures a month. So, if you're someone that just joined the program, chances are the suppliers that you found are just not going to be it. But that's fine, right? Because what happens is you'll run the ads to those suppliers, you'll have them on your site, you'll gain confidence, you may even make some sales, which usually you do, right? When I say a supplier isn't good, that doesn't mean that they're not going to make you sales. They'll probably still make you a few sales. But at this point, me and Mike have different standards of good, right? Like when we think of good, we think of suppliers that are making us $5,000, $10,000 a month. Honestly, sometimes I'll close suppliers, and based off what I'm seeing, I'm like, these guys can make me a millionaire, because, a lot of people watch this may have not felt this yet, but I've closed suppliers that have literally made me an extra $10,000 and even $15,000 profit a month, or even more. I've had, single suppliers profit us over $20,000 in a single month. So, it really could be true that one supplier could change your life. But the truth of the matter is you're probably not going to find that supplier in the first 5 to 10 suppliers you work with. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying that if you want to be putting up, 6 figures like me and Mike are, then I want to see you close 15, 20 suppliers.
Yeah, and there were a couple key takeaways that I kind of had from your little spiel there, Jared. Is the first one was the buried treasure analogy. That it was honestly so perfectly said. You're not going to find treasure at the surface level. You have to dig to places that no one else has dug before. And I'm not saying that you need to be the first retailer for a brand, but honestly, a lot of my most successful partnerships have been from when I got in early. And because, when you get in early with a supplier and you kind of set the benchmark standards of cost per click, you kind of own that. Because, I've even seen it with a couple of students that I've spoken to is, imagine you sign on with a new brand, and their benchmark cost per click is like $4. You're going to be pretty hesitant. So if you're the first one in there, I'm not going to say you own it, but you definitely plant your flag and you mark your territory, to say the least. And the second thing I wanted to point out was, Jack said that the first batch of suppliers that we get shown usually aren't good ones. Not to say that they're always bad, but a lot of people, they come in with the same idea, like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell gazebos and outdoor furniture. And, it's because the thing is that everyone's starting at the same point. And, my point is that the cliche saying, you live and you learn. It's so true, because the more that you apply these kind of techniques, the better eye for a supplier that you get. So when you by the time I launched 10 suppliers in my ads, and maybe one of them was profitable, at that point, it was discouraging that I had 9, and I probably had more than that. It's discouraging testing 9 suppliers and not having them be super profitable. But from a perspective standpoint, if you can take that information and now you're like, all right, I know what suppliers that don't work look like. It really helps you sharpen your mind to what a supplier that does will look like, if that made sense.
Yeah, and it really did make perfect sense. Guys, just to sum up, so we can move on to the next question. In simplest terms, right? If you want to find a supplier, or better yet, a product type that's actually going to make you money, right? You need to find something that people are going to hear that you're selling and say, "How the heck did you think of that?" Like, honestly, right? Like, the stuff that we're selling, I'm not sitting here and saying a lot of it's crazy stuff. It really isn't, right? A lot of it is just typical stuff you might have in a house, or better yet, typical stuff a rich person might have. But
True.
when I show people the stuff that I'm making serious money off, almost every time they're like, "Wow, how did you think of that?" And honestly, I didn't think of it. I found it. From what? How did I dig deep? I followed the exact strategy that we teach in the course, right? I started off on Wayfair, looked up some random product type, found products, then Google the brands that I find on Wayfair. Then once I do that, I find retailers. Then once you find retailers, right, that retailer might have 50, 60 brands, right? And if that retailer is running Google ads, they have to be making money from some of those brands. So at that point, it's kind of just going down the list and, looking for the ones that have high price points and low competition. So that's really how you dig deep. Honestly, just start from the top, browse Walmart, Wayfair, Home Depot, Google, find brands, Google those brands, go to the retailer, steal all the brands off that retailer. And, you're going to start hitting on some of them, because like I said, if the retailer is running ads, then somebody has to be making that guy money. And, I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to steal the whole pie from that guy, but you're going to get a piece of the pie. And as long as there's not too many people trying to eat the piece of pie, then you'll get a big piece, So think about it like that. Think about it like, let's just say there was a bunch of lions, right, in a pit, and you threw a piece of steak in, right? And there was 20 lions for one piece of steak, then most of the lions are going to starve, right? So think about suppliers like that. Like, if you're trying to work with a supplier that has 20 plus retailers, you're just going to end up starving most likely. So you need to look for suppliers that don't have a lot of competition, because those are the ones that can actually lead to you doing 6 figures plus. If there's 10, 15, 20 people selling them, what's going to happen is your bids are going to be ridiculously high. You're not going to be profitable. It's not going to be worth your time. It's just going to create frustration. So, honestly, guys, all we can tell you is good, high price points, low competition. We say it again and again. Any other analytic that you might want to invest your time in, it's honestly just a waste of time. Just stick to those 2 things and keep calling everything you can find, because you never know what's going to make you money. So,
yeah, and honestly, that metaphor about the pie is a great, back to kind of like the perspective standpoint, is that, you don't need to get the entire pie. The key is to find a supplier with, one, a big enough pie. There needs to be a nice amount of sales to get your share, and 2, you need to act on that. And it's, action is kind of the underlying thing in any kind of business. Another point really quick before we move on is, I know it's a story that I've told before. Jared, you just said, people ask you, how did you find the supplier? And one of my best suppliers that I currently sell, my aunt told me about. My aunt, who knows nothing about e-commerce, online business. It was a Sunday dinner, and she was like, "Michael, I think you should look into selling this, this, and this. Like, I know I have a friend who's interested, and like, I think it would sell well." Well, that night I hopped on Google. I found 3 suppliers that didn't have a lot of competition. It was very undersaturated. And out of those 3, one of them wound up being a true winning supplier. And now the supplier does like $70K a month for me. And it's honestly, it's mind-blowing. And, a lot of people would tell me, "Oh, wow, like you got so lucky." And, that's just a broke person mindset to call a situation like that lucky. it really comes back to the cliche saying that you create your own luck, because that's exactly what I did. If I didn't have an online business, then I wouldn't have put myself in that position to get lucky. So, maybe it was a little bit of luck that my aunt said that, but, I'm not going to take anything away from myself, that the fact that I put myself in the position to be lucky. And that's, I think, is a really fundamental issue that so many people don't understand when it comes to luck, is that, I think, yes, luck plays a small factor, but majority of the time it comes down to putting yourself in those positions to be lucky.
Yeah, I mean, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? So, I mean, that was really it. Your aunt had an idea. She made the comment to the right person, and you were prepared for it. So before we move on to the next topic, I see there's a few questions in the chat from some of our members, and obviously it's regarding this topic, so we might as well answer it now. So J-Ban said, what do you look for when digging deep? And is there a reason why you can't get that on the first few suppliers? Is there something newbies are missing? So that's a great question. It's not that newbies are missing something, but at the same time, it's just like an eye for it type of thing, right? Like, think about it like, all right, let's just say you wanted to design the interior of a home, right? How can you possibly have the same vision as someone who's been interior designing for years, right? So it's like, I can't really necessarily sum into words what it is that newbies are missing, but just like, think about that analogy, right? Like, when, let's just say you were trying to be a musician and you think you sound good, and then you play it for Drake, and then he could easily tell you all the little things to fix up your song with, right? It's the same thing with dropshipping. It's like guys like Mike and I, we've been doing this for so long that we can kind of see a supplier and say, wow, this has potential, or wow, this doesn't. And the only reason why is because we've tested so many suppliers that now we just kind of have an eye for it. And let me tell you something, Jay Vans, is that we still close and launch suppliers that do terrible. Like, I promise you, it's really just a numbers game. And the more you do it, the more likely you'll find something, or the better yet, the more likely you'll be able to tell if it's going to be good or not. But in the end of the day, it's still just a numbers game for the both of us. Like, I literally am still closing and launching suppliers that end up going nowhere, and I'll give you an example, right? I found a new niche in December. I thought the niche had serious potential. Closed 20 suppliers in that niche, pretty much all selling the same product. And only 2 of the suppliers really make me money. So it's like, why the 2 of the suppliers make money and the other 18 don't, even though they're selling the same product? I don't know. I really don't. But that's just the way the game is. If I had to tell you why, I would probably say because those 2 brands are just bigger brands than the other 18. Everything's about branding in the end of the day.
Yeah, honestly, before we get to that next question, that was a perfect analogy. Honestly, J-Bands, the only thing that you're missing is the experience. I'm not going to kind of just keep beating the dead horse, but exactly what you said, you can't have the expectations to point out those great suppliers when, you've probably only been doing it for a month or 2.
Yep.
I see Chris said, have you ever had success with a supplier that doesn't have a MAP policy? And that's a good question. For people who maybe don't know what a MAP policy is, really quick, it stands for minimum advertising price. So the best suppliers will enforce this MAP policy to ensure a level playing field, so no one undercuts each other. And to answer your question, Chris, is yes, we have both had success with MAP suppliers, but in my opinion, from my point of view, it comes down to sustainability. We love this business model because it is so sustainable, where when you find these suppliers that sell well, they usually just drop off the face of the earth, where you can continue to sell them until you decide to sell your store. But if a supplier doesn't have MAP, then there's almost like there's a time limit on them. It's only a matter of time before retailers start flooding in and just start undercutting in terms of price, and then you have to cut them. So in terms of like a quick cash out, if you see a supplier that doesn't have a MAP, but maybe has only 3 or 4 retailers, and the retailers are priced well enough where you can still make money, then I say close them. Get in, get your money, and then, eventually it might get to a point where, you just can't make money selling these suppliers.
Yeah. When I first started, right, like back in early 2018, one of the first suppliers that got my store off the ground did not have MAP. I cut off, I went below everyone that was selling the supplier. They had good competition too. There was probably like 10 people selling this product. I literally just lowered my price, let's just say $20 less than everyone else, started making money pretty quickly. But then what happened was someone undercut me pretty quickly. But luckily, by the time that happened, I already made a good amount of money and I closed a new supplier that kind of replaced that whole entire supplier income. So yes, you can find success with a supplier that doesn't have a map policy, but that success will most likely be short-lived. Obviously, in the end of the day, Mike and I look for suppliers that are going to give us a source of income for as long as possible. Months, years, who knows, decades. So when it comes to suppliers that don't have map, the unfortunate truth is that the longevity won't be there, because as long as they keep closing new retailers, then those new retailers are just going to go below you until eventually it's going to become saturated, and it's just going to be a race to the bottom. And that's another thing with suppliers that don't have anyone as well. So it becomes saturated. The truth is, a supplier either cares about their dealers or don't. And if they don't have map, then that's really just a sign that they don't care about their dealers.
Yeah, they're really just, they want as much money as possible, which is why a lot of people don't enforce map. But also really funny, not really a story, but Jared, I remember you used to have your VAs police the suppliers that didn't have map, and then anytime Jared didn't have the lowest price, his VAs would go in and make it lower. Really funny.
Yeah, guys, honestly, if you have employees, just keep finding things for them to do. But anyway, let's keep moving, because we do have a lot of other topics to cover. So the next question is how to contact USA suppliers in high ticket drop shipping. Now, simply, obviously, we always call, we always email. But what I would do is I look on the supplier website first, right? And I look for a dealer application. I will fill that out, and then essentially email the supplier after filling it out, or better yet, call right after filling out the app. And if they don't answer, then I'll email. If they do answer, then obviously we take it from there. Usually when you call a supplier, it ends with them telling you to send them an email. But I mean, honestly, the only way to answer this question is call, email, and send in the application, if there is one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you want to keep moving, or do you have anything else you have to say to that one?
You want to get to the next questions, or no? Should we save them for later?
Let's see. We have Sports Mafia. What is the average number of suppliers a starter should have before launching? We say this to everyone, 3 to 5 suppliers.
Yep. I know J-Ban said, would it be better to look for weird niches and capture the top suppliers, or go for saturated niches but low competition products? The answer is both, honestly.
Yeah. I would honestly, yeah. Sorry, Mike.
No. I was going to say, when it comes to supplier research, 10x. We 1000x everything. Anytime you're doing anything that doesn't require your full attention, have your computer in front of you and find suppliers. So,
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, like, weird niches are good, but when it comes to niches, okay, guys, here's one thing I didn't say about the niche topic that's very important, at least to me, is when you're thinking of a niche, right? Think of something that a lot of people are going to buy, right? Whether it's businesses or homes, think in terms of volume, right? Like, how many people are actually going to need this product? I'll give you a good example, right? At one point, I used to have a sports store, and I closed a supplier that sold baseball mounds, and I thought that niche would be great. But what happened was we probably sold the baseball mound once every 3 months. And I didn't understand why, because, we were dominating on Google. But then I realized how many people are actually buying baseball mounds, right? Not a lot of people. Like, no one's buying that for their house. There's only so many little leagues in the world. And those little leagues that are buying mounds, how often are they buying mounds? Once every 5 years, 10 years. So, when I closed that supplier, I thought it was going to make me a lot of money. But then reality set in, was just not that many people actually need the product. So, when it comes to weird niches, just always make sure that it's unique, but that people actually need it. So, J-Band, that's a great question. In the end of the day, as Mike said it, both. The answer is really both. Close top suppliers in low competition niches, close suppliers in unique niches, close suppliers that just don't have too much competition and have good price points. Haroon's asking about Oberlo, so we're just going to skip that.
Watch our other videos, Haroon. We're not Oberlo guys. But also, before we continue, how do you sell dirt? How do you sell pitching mounds? Do you sell dirt and rubber?
They were the They obviously weren't the ones that they weren't the dirt ones. Obviously, it was the turf mound. You know, the ones that could be, moved. Not, but yeah, no, they
Okay.
were expensive products. They went for like 3,000 bucks, and like I said, I thought they would be a big hit, but when reality set in, was just nobody was buying them.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So next up, we got how to contact USA suppliers.
We just did that one.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much covered it.
Yeah. The next one's good
Yeah.
though. Expectations with customers. So how to close and how to manage a sale. So Mike, you want to start this with some closing tips, and then I'll come in after.
Yeah. I think when it comes to customer service, I always really liked customer service more than Jared did. When I say customer service, I mean closing new calls. So, it's one thing to be excited about making sales and, closing a phone call. It's another thing to be dealing with a customer issue, which is why we usually have two different extensions after the orders get too much. But yeah, when it comes to customer service, like, it's really just, it sounds so corny, put the customer first, just come across as genuine and a kind person and answer any question they have. Obviously, in the beginning, it's very tough because, you just started selling these products and now customers are asking you questions about the products. And chances are, if the customer has done research and you just started selling a product, they probably know more about your products than you do. My main tip is, they'll tell you what product they want, hop onto the product page that you have, and Command F. I search a page. So if someone's like, how much does this weigh? I'll type in LBS or, weight, something like that. And hopefully it'll take you to the product page. That's kind of over time, you'll start knowing your products and you'll start getting the same exact questions. And so you'll be well versed. But, in the beginning, don't be afraid to tell a customer, hey, do you mind if I put you on a quick hold? Put them on a hold, go through your website, go through the supplier website, find the answer. At the end of the day, sometimes worst case scenario, if I really can't find the answer, and maybe this isn't something that I always recommend 100% of the time, but I'll take a guess on the correct answer, and then as soon as I hang up with the customer, I call the manufacturer, find out the real answer for sure, and if I'm right, I'm great. But if I'm wrong, I just give the customer a call back and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I was mistaken.
I love that you said that sometimes customers, or better yet, a lot of the time, customers will really know more about the product than you do, right? I have so many examples where customers literally would like ask me a question, but kind of ask it in a way where like they were just like reassuring. They were always right. Like if a customer like feels like they know the answer, they're probably right. So honestly, guys, again, I don't always recommend this, but there's a lot of times where I really didn't know what the heck the customer was talking about, but I still said yes because I didn't want that little unimportant detail to get in between me closing the sale, right? Like when you sell a product for months, right? Obviously, as you can imagine, you get very similar questions, right? So like if you've been selling the same product for 5-6 months, it comes to a point where you can pretty much answer everything off the top of your head, but you'll still randomly get customers ask you questions you've never heard before. And honestly, 9 out of 10 times, that question is just so unimportant. Like I say to myself, I'm like in my head, I'm like, dude, I've spoken to hundreds of customers, closed hundreds of customers. You're asking this question that's so unimportant. So honestly, I'll just yes them because, like I said, I'm not going to let that unimportant detail get in between me and the sale. Now, again, I don't always recommend this. It's your business. Do what you want. But that's what I did. Now I don't take the calls myself. I have employees. And that's the beautiful part, right? Is that the sales really do close themselves. The customers that come to your site, when you run optimized ads, the customers that are coming to your site are customers that already know they want to buy. So it's like they've been reading, they've been studying. Chances are they just want to know if it's in stock. They just want to know if you can give them a good price. So a lot of the times, simple customer service tactics are all you need. Things like saying people's names, being enthusiastic, being nice. Again, as Mike mentioned, you can put them on hold while you look on Google. Another thing you can do is just check in with the supplier and then call them back. A lot of times, especially big sales, you'll have to speak to the customer 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 times before closing the sale. So, don't be afraid to tell the customer, hey, I really don't know the answer. I don't want to misinform you. I'm going to contact the supplier. Can I call you back? And every single time they're going to say yes, and they're going to be happy about it. Customers honestly will like that you call them back. They will see that you're willing to go the extra length for them. And that's how you close sales. I remember I had a friend once hang out with me, and I had a customer call about a $12,000 item. And this specific friend was just getting started into the drop shipping game. And what happened was he saw me call the customer, call the supplier, call the customer back, call the supplier back, and then call the customer back again. And the end result was I closed the sale, and he got a firsthand, experience as to what it's like to close big sales. And now he's actually doing really well because he just got to witness all that stuff. He got to witness me doing it, and obviously got to implement it into his own business. So, when it comes to closing sales, guys, again, we don't recommend lying by any means. But if it's a really small detail, then, don't let that get in between you and the sale. Even if you have to confirm with the supplier before you ship it, right? The way I like to look at it is it's a lot easier to close sales once you have the customer's money. So sometimes like a customer might call and say, is it in stock, right? I actually had this happen recently because it was a weekend. I didn't have any employees working, and I had no idea if it was in stock. It was probably on back order. But the guy goes, is it in stock? I'm like, yeah, I think it is. We'll follow up with you in 2 days after ordering. And he obviously bought. And then we emailed him 2 days after he ordered, letting him know it was on back order. And he agreed to wait. So again, do I recommend always doing this stuff? No. But me and Mike have done some things that are definitely borderline, to close sales.
But the thing is, like, we're not deceiving customers. It's not like we're telling customers, oh yeah, it's in stock. They buy and 3 months passes and they don't get the item. At the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that every business needs to be built on the most ethical foundation, because without that, it's going to eventually crumble, and bad things will just start to happen. So maybe we'll tell a customer because we think it's in stock. Oh, it's not. It's out of stock. We let them know right away. Now at the same token, customer needs to come first. There are going to be times or situations where either we messed up or the manufacturer messed up. Honestly, usually the manufacturer. As a middleman, it's really tough to mess up something. Like I said, it's either the manufacturer, shipping delays, or a damaged product. At the end of the day, if you're the one selling it, I believe you need to take responsibility. So there are so many cases every month where I may need to take a $400 L to compensate a customer. But that's just something that I'm willing to do. I'm willing to go above and beyond because, one, from an ethical standpoint, I have principles and I think the customer needs to be taken care of. And two, I've seen it work out for me in the end. 4 months ago, I gave a customer a $400 discount because they had to wait very, very long for the product. The product arrived damaged, so they need to wait another 2 weeks for a replacement. And while it sucked in the moment and the customer, was furious, I got a call a week or two ago from that same customer's neighbor. And the neighbor said, yeah, so-and-so told me, he said he had an okay experience, but he said you guys handled it really well. And the guy wound up buying a $3,400 item from me that same day, his neighbor. So, that's why I think you need to put the customer first. At the same token, my first or second week of running ads to my website, one of my suppliers told me a quote I'll never forget, and that is, buyers are liars. So you definitely need to always kind of be on the lookout. You're going to have times where customers were like, hey, can you price match? This retailer gave it to me for this price. And the prices that retailers get, and you're just like, that's just not true. You still just kind of have to work around it. That's something that comes with customer service. It's very rewarding because I would so much rather be on a phone call closing a sale for a business that I own and that's going to put money in my own pocket compared to 90% of the world who is on the phone closing sales to put money in someone else's pocket. And so that kind of mental is something that I thought from the beginning. That's why I was always so ecstatic about customer service. I remember my first sale, I was playing basketball with my friends at the park. And, I finished the game. I saw that I had a missed call and the guy left a voicemail saying he was ready to buy. I swear to God, I sprinted to my car, drove like 90 miles an hour on side roads on my way home, and I wound up closing the sale. And so, you're going to have different experiences, but that's kind of the basis of it.
Yeah, and in the high ticket dropshipping game, guys, customer service is really extremely important. This is where you have the chance to separate yourself from everyone else. Obviously, there's the ads coming up on top. There's the product page, looking authentic, looking trustworthy. But another obvious, really, really important aspect and a really, great way to separate yourself from other companies is customer service. You got to understand, most of these customers have called Walmart, Home Depot, all these big companies where they're getting these awful employees that don't give a crap, that, aren't even trying to close the sale, that aren't even qualified, right? They're minimum wage type workers. And then they call you, the owner of the company, the person who's going to give his all to the company, to the customer, sorry. The person who's going to do everything he can, going to be super enthusiastic, super happy to help the customer. It's such a big difference, right? So, don't treat customer service lightly, right? Like even if you get 5 calls a month, right, which is obviously very, very little for anyone that's running ads, out of those 5 calls, especially if you have no existing orders, so out of those 5 calls, all of them are potential sales, you'll probably close 1 or 2 of them. And every call is so important, right? You don't have the room to be missing calls. If you miss a call, you need to call them back, because any call can literally be a sale, right? Like, once your calls are getting out of hand, right? So that leads to the next part, right? Like, we covered how to close a sale, right? So now it's how do you manage a sale? Well, first off, what me and Mike recommend doing once you start getting a lot of sales is you set up voicemails on the Grasshopper app, because then what you can do is you can create extensions, right? So when you first set up your calls, every call is going to go to extension 0. So you're not going to know if it's a new customer or an existing customer. And once you have hundreds of orders, or better yet, even 50 orders, that stuff will start to drive you crazy. So the first thing to do to manage sales is to set up extensions. Now, I don't recommend using your own voice for the voicemail. Use your mom, dad, brother, whatever. Have them say, thank you for calling. Please hit extension 1 for a new order, extension 2 for, questions about an order, like tracking and order status. So then this way you'll have the peace of mind. You'll know if it's a new order or an old order. The second thing for managing sales is just, keeping the customer updated at all times. Unfortunately, as a drop shipper, you're at the mercy of the supplier. So a lot of times things will happen out of your control. And, as the drop shipper, as the person who has the customer's money, you are still liable. You are still responsible. Despite anything that the supplier might do, you're still the one with their money. So you're still the one that has to take care of the customer. So even if the supplier is giving you a hard time or not helping you, I'll give you guys an example. I just had an order shipped. It was supposed to ship in 7 boxes. The supplier only sent 4. So now the customer is angry, screaming at us. We still have to answer the calls, answer the emails, answer the customer, and do everything we can to keep them happy, because we're the one that has the customer's money, not the supplier.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna charge. If they're gonna file a chargeback against anyone, it's gonna be against your business, not the manufacturer. So, definitely a key takeaway is you can't neglect your customers. Even if it may seem like the world is falling apart around you, your whole business is crumbling because you have a couple of customers with problems. The worst thing you can do is, look the other way and think that the problems are going to somehow, fix themselves. You need to attack the problems and get them out of the way so that way you can keep moving. And really quickly, I want to circle back to what Jared was saying before. And he was talking about, the importance of customer service compared to big box retailers. And this is something that I think is very helpful if a supplier ever asks you, because I've been asked it probably like 5 or 6 times from suppliers, is they'll say, what separates you from other retailers, or what separates you from big box retailers? So that's a pretty common question. What separates your website from Home Depot, Wayfair, Lowe's? And, the first one, these are like real responses that I say, and I've gotten very great reactions from it. The first one is obvious, like Jared mentioned, is customer service. You call Wayfair. I actually called Wayfair with my mom. She wanted to buy backyard furniture set for cheap. So we called Wayfair. Well, we were on hold for about 15 to 20 minutes before finally getting a hold of someone. And when we finally got a hold of someone, they had no idea about the product that we were talking about. Think about it. They have thousands of products. How helpful are customer service reps really going to be when they have all these products? Meanwhile, your store, maybe you carry 10 suppliers. It's much more easier. It's much easier for one, a customer to get a hold of a rep, and two, for that rep to be able to help the customer. So customer service is the first part, and kind of sidetrack. But if a supplier does ask you that, the second thing is advertisements. Wayfair again has thousands of brands, hundreds of thousands of products. How does anyone expect their ads to be as focused and optimized as me? I run ads for 10 suppliers on my website. How on earth is Wayfair going to monitor and raise and decrease bids for brands that they're running these Google ads to when there's so many? Whereas my pitch is that I'm able to go in and anytime, let's say I'm trying to close a refrigerator manufacturer, my goal is anytime anyone searches two-door refrigerator, your brand appears. And that's kind of just a quick sales pitch that I like to give suppliers, because it's really just so true. The difference between us and Wayfair, it's night and day.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of people always say, like, how do you compete with the big box retailers, right? Competing with the big box retailers is the easiest part, right? If it's just Wayfair, that's your competition, then you're going to dominate the Google shopping ads. I guarantee you it. So, don't worry about competing with other big box retailers. Worry about competing with other drop shippers. Another thing that Mike mentioned was that, he runs ads for 10 suppliers compared to their hundreds of thousands. Now, obviously, in the beginning of the video, me and Mike talked about that, to make serious money, you need to launch 20 to 30 suppliers, right? So you might be asking yourself, well, why is he only running ads for 10? And the answer, guys, is think about it like this. Your first 3 to 6 months of running ads, your conversion rate's going to be low, your profit's going to be low, your sales may not be that low, all et cetera, right? All the bad things. But what do you think is going to happen 3 to 6 months down the road? You're going to cut all the suppliers that you're wasting money on. So you're going to be profitable, right? You're not going to, thing is, you can't know which suppliers are a waste of money until, 6 to 12 months down the road. So you're going to cut all the suppliers that are wasting money. You're going to spend way more on the suppliers that are making you money. And you're going to dive into the ads to retarget customers on the suppliers that are making you money. And, other scaling strategies like text ads or just, raising the budgets. So think about that, guys. If you're someone that just started running ads a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, if you're profitable, then that's honestly a miracle, because I promise you, like, where you're going to be at 3 months or 6 months down the road, it's going to be a completely different place. Like I said, all those terrible suppliers, you're not going to be spending a dime on, and all those great suppliers, you're going to be spending, 5 or 10x. So like I said, your conversion rate will go up, your profit will go up, your sales will go up. And another thing that's not really talked about is the Google algorithm starts to favor you after a while. The Google algorithm, it's a long-term type game. And, once you've been in it for a month, it starts kind of like feeding you sales in a way.
And that's like the cherry on top, more so.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not to say Google's not going to give you sales because, your shopping ads are still running. But, imagine after, like Jared said, after 6 months, you have profitable suppliers running, and now you're pretty in there with Google, and now they're giving you higher position for less or whatever, however the algorithm works like that. It really does show true.
Yeah.
Also,
so
in the background,
take that all into a consideration, guys. Like, honestly, like I said, if you're just starting to run ads and you're somehow profitable in the first few months, that really is a miracle, because I promise, where you'll be 3 to 6 months down the road, and even further. We've been doing this for years now, and that's why we're doing 6-figure months, honestly, like clockwork. We really don't have to work hard. We don't have to make major changes. We don't have to close supply. We don't have to do anything at this point. It's all done already. And that's the beautiful part that people don't think about e-com, is that, all the work you're doing right now, it's for a purpose. It's for you to have a system that's going to make you financially free and continue to pay you every single day. So, if you're not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now, just stick with us long enough and we'll get you there.
And that's honestly, I think it goes beyond e-commerce. What you just said is, anytime you're starting any business, and obviously it applies for e-commerce, you're going to have to put the work in. And in the moment, those kind of sacrifices just doesn't seem worth it. Really quick, I had a really great conversation with one of my friends from home, and he told me, he was like, he pretty much just commended me because, even, and this was like last week that he gave me this compliment because I've been working on some new things. He's like, you're willing to make these short-term sacrifices, like going out on the weekends or, hanging out at someone's house. He complimented me because I was willing to give that up because I was able to look, 6 months, 12 months down the road. And I mean, he's talking to someone who already has a business that does well over six figures and, is on autopilot at this point. But, that comes down to complacency and never being satisfied. But my point is that you need to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You need to know why you're doing it. You may be sacrificing your time and your money to get your business off of the ground. But, if you're not thinking long term, then you need to kind of go back and reassess, why are you in this position in the first place?
Yeah. Obviously we've said this many times in the past, but if you're looking for a get rich quick scheme, then this isn't the place. So if you're looking for somewhere to build a real financial freedom, then obviously we're the guys that can help you. But you have to understand, right? When you're trying to build real financial freedom, you can't look at 6 months or 1 year as a long time. You got to be looking at 30, 40, 50 years. What's going to set you up for life? Now, me and Mike, let me tell you guys a little secret, right? Most millionaires are not people that get rich over a slow period of time, right? We're not in this game to be rich when we're 40. Most millionaires make their lump sum quickly and then do things with that money to create more money. So don't worry about if this business is going to be around 10, 15, 20 years from now. Worry about making millions over the next 5 to 10 years. And once you have your millions, then you can do whatever the heck you want. Now, this form of drop shipping that me and Mike are teaching is a real business, right? You're creating real supplier relationships under a foundation of real traffic. This business model is not going anywhere. I can almost guarantee that it will be around forever. But that's besides the point. Me and Mike don't think that far. We really don't worry about if we're going to be drop shipping when we're 50. Matter of fact, we don't want to be drop shipping when we're 50. We want to keep making 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a month profit from our stores, sell out eventually. Who knows? It might be next year. It might be in 3 years, 4 years, and then move on with our lives. So, keep that mentality. Keep the mentality of how are you going to become a millionaire as quickly as possible. Now, I promise that the method we're teaching will be a great accelerator to that journey, right? Like we don't want to be known as drop shippers. We want to be known as millionaires. So, for us, this is just part of that journey, right? We don't look at drop shipping as the end all be all. We don't look at drop shipping as our lives. We just look at it as part of the journey to millions. Now, to get it to that part, to make it part of your journey, you have to go all in. Not that you have to go all in, but you have to treat it seriously. You can't treat it like a hobby. You need to treat it like a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's perfectly said. Any kind of business that can create cash flow has potential to keep on building up to a certain point. When I first started my first high ticket store, my goal was to I was like, all right, if I can get this business to make $7,000, maybe $8,000 a month, I'll be good. I can take that money and reinvest it. And then, after like 5 or 6 months, I'm like, wait a second, like you actually have the potential to make 40 grand profit in a month in this business model. And it's really eye opening. Obviously it's not easy because if it was easy, everybody would do it. But, it's a system. It's all about getting the system in place and then taking the proper action. And that's kind of me and Jared's goal is, we're giving I'm sure most people watching are our students. We're giving you guys the system that has proven to work for us time and time again. So, take that same system and apply the massive action, and eventually you'll get the results that you're seeking for.
Yeah, I'm sorry guys that we're going on tangents. We've only gotten through three checkpoints so far, so we got to keep this moving.
We're gonna rename the channel More Than Tangents.
So the next check is how to deal with returns and dropshipping. So we'll try to make this one quick. So the first thing you need is the RMA, right? That's That's what the supplier will give you. You need the RMA, you need the address of where it's going to be shipped to, which again is information you'll get from the supplier. Now, typically we make the customer handle the return. I tell the customer, if you want to return it, then return it, right? So you have the information, you have the RMA number. This needs to be on the outside of the box. You have the address. Figure it out. Now, obviously, if it's something where the supplier screwed up, then it's a different story. Sometimes you'll have to arrange the shipment. Sometimes you'll have to just pressure the supplier to arrange the shipment. But usually the customer should handle the return shipping. But if the customer receives an item that's completely defective, then that's when I might step in and help pay for the return shipping or just cover it in full.
Yeah, there's a difference between what some of my suppliers call buyer's remorse, or like you said, a damaged product. If anything comes damaged or it's not as advertised, then that's on you and the supplier. Usually, the supplier will either offer a partial refund for the inconvenience, or they'll do an exchange. It's on them if they send a defective product. If it's buyer's remorse, chances are the buyer is going to have to pay for return shipping and a restocking fee, because most suppliers, it depends on the product. Now that it was sent to the customer and it was opened, they can't sell it as new. So, a lot of times they'll take anywhere from 15 to 30% restocking fee, which, if you try to tell a customer like, hey, there's a 30% restocking fee on this $5,000 item, they're probably not going to like that. But, I think
15% for restocking is typically normal. And yeah, make sure you guys have that in your return policy. Customer pays for return shipping, 15% restocking fee. And there are suppliers that actually don't even offer returns. So make sure you put that in your policy as well. This supplier doesn't offer returns. That's very important. I know both Mike and I have suppliers that don't offer returns. So
and those are...
I don't like working with those guys, but
Yeah, that's why you definitely need to make sure that you find that out, because you don't want to be in a position where a customer wants to return and the supplier says, hey, we don't accept returns. You're going to have to tell them to send it to your warehouse and you're going to have to hold it. Little do they know we don't have a warehouse. What am I going to bring in my backyard, and I'm going to carry this ginormous machine in my backyard?
Well, so actually I do have a solution for that. So if the supplier does not take returns and the item isn't that defective, obviously if it's too defective, you can't resell it. But one thing I've done with suppliers that don't take returns is I had them ship it to my house, to the house. And then what I would do is I would relist it on the site for a lower price below MAP. Now, even if the supplier has MAP, if they're not going to let me return the item, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it shipped to my house, put in parentheses in the title, open box, and then I am going to list it below MAP. Now, obviously, the supplier may not like it, but I'm going to say, look, you're not letting me return this item. I'm reselling it as an open box below MAP. When you put an item below MAP, you'll sell it pretty quickly. Every time I've done this, it's worked. I've sold the item. Now, I will say that I have made open box sales where then the second customer got it and then they wanted to return it. Now, that's where it gets a little tricky, but it's a strategy that it's really the only solution. If the item, if the supplier doesn't take returns and the customer wants to return it, then this really is the only solution, because you can't just tell the customer to go F himself with the item. He's just going to file a chargeback. So, okay, so that's really how to deal with returns. So this leads to the next one: how to outsource in drop shipping. Now, a lot of people like to talk about Upwork. We personally don't use Upwork anymore. We used to, but now what we use is our little secret technique of Craigslist Manila. So just so you guys know what exactly that is, it's simply Craigslist, but in Manila. What is Manila? Manila is pretty much the capital of the Philippines. People from the Philippines are the best employees in the world. They work for $4 an hour. As long as you hire the right one, they won't have an accent. So the way we find employees that don't have accents is we make them send voice recordings before we interview them, because if their English isn't good enough, we're not even going to waste our time with an interview. So they work for $4 an hour, don't have an accent, and honestly, most people in the Philippines work their butt off. So that's how we hire employees. Mike, I know you probably want to throw some notes in.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, not just that may have sounded insensitive to say, we don't want an employee with an accent. So, don't take it like that. Just from like a buyer's perspective is, if they call in and they know that they're speaking to someone from another country, they immediately get turned off. They're probably not going to buy from you. Not all the time, but they'll get frustrated very, very easy and turn you away. It's hiring your first employee is it's a pretty cool experience. You get probably like 10 job applications within the first two or 3 days. You get to weed through the applications. They usually send legit resumes. Then you move on to the next round of, you let them know that you want to interview them. And then training and stuff like that. It just comes down to you explaining the knowledge that you have and portraying it in a way that's easy to grasp. Because, obviously these people don't know anything about your business. So, the first couple of weeks may be tough for them. But, from our experience, Jared obviously taught me when I hired my first employee was sometimes you just got to throw them into the fire, like let them take phone calls. Eventually, maybe they'll mess up the first couple, but, they're going to learn the system. And majority of our employees, when they first start when a store first hires employees, it's typically just for existing customers. So, we said that we separated between two extensions. So, in the beginning, maybe you'll take the new customers and then all existing customers will go to your employee. And it's just an easier way for them to kind of understand the system. Obviously you start them off with things like processing orders, customer service, anything that you can think of that you don't really want to do. It's honestly awesome having VAs because the problems, when I say problems, I mean like, returns, customer issues, cancellations. The problems still obviously are there, but the fact that you're not dealing with it, it brings your headspace into just a completely different, like, you're so much less cluttered. Like I said, the problems are still existing. You really just don't know about them, or maybe you know about them, you're just not having to deal with it. It really makes your day better. It opens you up to more creativity and lets you just, expand your business. You're not hiring an employee so you can now spend the day watching Netflix. That's not, as business owners, that's not what we do. That's anyone else, their thinking is, oh wow, that's so awesome. Now you can spend the day doing whatever you want. It's like, no, like if I'm going to pay an employee, whatever it is, $1,000 a month, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to turn that 1,000 and the time that I have free now, I'm going to grow my business. So I'm not paying them 1,000. I'm actually making an extra 5,000 from having an employee.
Well, and sometimes we do whatever we want, and that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
But, a very important thing to understand, guys, is, having an employee, it's like going from being the frontline soldier to just being a general and having someone you can send on the front lines. So, when you're the only one dealing with everything, as Mike mentioned, the problems still exist, right? But think about it like this. Let's just say hypothetically you're driving, right? And you have a customer calling and you can't deal with it right now. You need to drive. You need to focus on the road. Having an employee is like as simple as being able to message them and say, handle this, or not having anyone to message to handle it, I have plenty of clients that are in the stage where, sales are starting to pick up for them and they don't have employees yet. And, not that they're going crazy, but, they're stressed out. And that's how we can, that's how guys from me and Mike who have done this before can easily say, it's time for you to hire an employee, because it's like I said, when you don't have an employee, you have to deal with everything, right? But when you do have an employee, it's like you can miss a call and say, call them back. Or you can turn your phone off the extensions and have them answer. Guys, when you're just getting started, especially, but at every stage, each call, you don't even realize what that call might contain, right? The beauty of high ticket drop shipping and why I recommend having price. So I recommend that 70% of your store should be within, 1 to 3,000. Maybe 20% should be within, 4 to 10,000. And then maybe 10% should be like 10,000 or more. And I would say, those are, rough estimates, very rough. But the reason why you should have, a big catalog of different price ranges is because when you're in this game, you don't know what tomorrow can bring, right? I have plenty of products in my store in the $10,000 and $20,000 range, products that have sold numerous times. And the beauty of this game is that tomorrow could be the day where I sell another one, So when you have calls being missed, for all you know, you can be missing $1,000, 10,000, or even $20,000 calls. So, an employee from Craigslist Manila is typically going to run you, between $600 and $900. Well, if they answer just 10 calls a month, then I almost guarantee you it'll pay for itself in the high ticket game. So, you know, again, if you feel stressed out from your business, or you can tell that you're just handling every little thing, then it's definitely time for you to hire an employee. And obviously, if you're in a stage, then you can feel free to message Mike and I, and we'll be always happy to give our 2 cents on the subject.
Yeah, I mean, really quick before we move on to the next point, Jared, I know you posted something on your Instagram story. I think it was like you had an employee tell you their revenue earnings for how much sales they closed for the month, and I like 80 grand worth of sales.
And that's actually funny, is that, so one of my stores at this point, it's really big. I'm sure some of you guys have seen screenshots from it. We've done 500,000-600,000 in a month. And I have, 7-8 employees, right? Literally closing sales, literally fighting over sales, right? I had an employee rat out the other employee because one of them was working on the sale the whole time, and then the other one called the customer back and closed the sale. And they were like, "Oh, I want to use it towards my bonus." "No, I want to." And I'm like, "Relax, guys. You can both use it." So it's so funny, right? Because you would never think a dropshipping store can become like this corporate ladder where you have literally customer service reps closing sales, trying to hit quotas, trying to hit bonuses. But it really has become that for us. We really have 4 people dedicated to phones, 1 person dedicated to chats, and 3 people dedicated to emails. So it's like, it's really become this like corporate structured system. And, that leads me to another important point, is that you should, especially when you're hiring your first employee, it's very important that you do your due diligence. You know what's worse than having to have the responsibility on your own is counting on someone who's unreliable, right? Like if you don't interview the person, or better yet, you just don't even care. Like you hire, let's just say you interview one person and you just say, "Oh, I'm going to hire them." Well, there's a good chance you might tell this person to do something. They might say okay and then not do it. We actually had a client today I was talking to personally. You weren't there for it, Mike, but he had an employee that he hired, and he told her to do something, and she said okay, and he said, "Do you understand?" And she said yes, and he told her to do it, and then he checked back in with her 2 days, and she did it completely wrong. And he also hired this employee without really doing his due diligence, and that's the price you have to pay when you do that. So never hire the first employee that you interview. If you're going to hire your first employee, always interview 3, 4, 5 people. This way you can actually compare. You can tell who's better than who, as opposed to one person thinking they're good and jumping the gun. So it's very important for your first employee, at least, that you do your due diligence, because this is someone that's going to take a lot of the burden off you. And if they're not good, then it's going to create more stress for you than take the burden off you.
No, for sure. And that's why, in the beginning, you're probably going to have to do more. You're definitely going to have to do more work than you were doing before you hired the employee. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to hold their hand. You don't want to, I said throw them in the fire. You want to teach them as much as you can. Hold their hand, let them know the tasks. And then, when you get to a point where, you think they know the system well enough, then you throw them in, let them take the phone calls or whatever it is. Let's move on to the next point, though, Jared. How to develop systems to grow to a 7-figure store in dropshipping. So this is kind of a loaded question. I guess you kind of want to give a basis. I mean, I'm sure our members know the system. You broke it up there for a sec.
So, what's going to happen is you're going to start making sales, and you're going to hire your first employee, right? But chances are, to get to that next level, you're going to need to hire more employees. So you're never really prepared for the growth that you get. And the truth is that for you to develop systems, what kind of has to happen is your company has to go through like a level of turmoil where things are crazy, calls aren't being answered, emails aren't being answered, chats aren't being answered. And at that point, you hire more employees. Again, one thing I've done is I've created filters in the email inboxes. So certain words show up in certain filters, like one word being refunds, right? This way, anytime a customer requests a refund, we don't miss that email. Because if we miss that email, it might result in a chargeback. As far as scaling to 7 figures, maybe Mike, you want to discuss, some of the ad strategies that we would use to scale a store to 7 figures.
Yeah, and so there's a variety of things. It's a lot of times it's not as complicated as you think. It really, so many times clients, or people that we're working with will be like, "Hey, so I was looking at this analytic, and this, and this. I thought I looked into in the percentages. This is the industry standard." And my response to that is, throw all that analytic stuff away. The only thing that you need to focus on is your cost per conversion. Are you profitable? Because when you're able to find out at what line are you profitable, then scaling becomes so much easier. So if after a month, let's say you spent $400 on a supplier, or whatever you spent, let's say $500 on a supplier, and their ROI was $2,000 profit. From a conceptual standpoint, you like to think, all right, well, if I spend $1,000 on them, I'll be able to make back $4,000 profit. And while that does sound nice and all, it doesn't always work like that. And so that's why you kind of need to find the line. Sometimes to find the line, you have to step over the line. So let's say you do that and you raise it, and you wind up spending $1,000, and you don't make that back in the same total that you spent $500 on. That's why you need to kind of find that sweet spot of, all right, it's nice to make a lot of sales, but at the same time, you need to find out at what point are you able to maintain, real nice profitable line.
Well, one thing that's so simple but is always overlooked from beginners is it's so important to never look at your ads, especially when you're getting started, right? Again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the live stream, guys, if you're profitable in the first 2, 3, 4 months, then it's a miracle, right? When you're first getting started, this is so important that you never look at the ads from a holistic perspective, and always look at each supplier's ad spend individually. Why is this important? Because think about it, if you look at it from a whole perspective, all right, I spent $5,000 this month and we made back 40 grand, and we profited 2 grand. That doesn't help you, right? That doesn't help in any way. But if you look at each supplier, all right, I spent 1 grand on this supplier and we made back 2 grand. That is going to help you. Why? Because now you know that you need to spend more on that supplier. Then you go look at your next supplier. 100 on this supplier, but we only made back 300. Now you know that you need to lower everything on that supplier. So it's so important that you do that, right? Because if you don't holistic perspective, and then you're going to raise the budgets on everything, and then you're going to keep spending more on the good stuff, but you're also going to keep spending more on the bad stuff. So, this is something that's super simple, but a lot of beginners don't ever think about this because, how could they know? So, if you're a beginner and you're watching this is extremely valuable information that you should really take seriously. And of course, for you to know, how much you profited off a supplier, you don't just need to look at how much you spent, but you also need to know how much you made. So, it's very important when you're first getting started that you always are on top of how much you made. Me and Mike use Google Sheets, and, we keep track of our P&Ls. And yeah, again, it's very important to know how much you made and how much you spent, not on the whole store, right? And the reason why the whole store isn't important is because the bad suppliers are going to get cut and the good suppliers you're going to spend more on. So it's not important to know how much you spend on everything as a whole. Of course it is, so you know how much you actually profited. But if you want to go the distance, if you want to get to 6 figures a month and, better, then this is the way to do it, is to look at each supplier individually, spend more on the ones that are making you money and cut the ones that are losing you money.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, obviously that's a pretty, low level point of view, but the basics, that's the basic understanding of it is, when it comes to any kind of advertising, you need to be as precise as you possibly can. You need to know, all right, well, I want to spend more money on my winning suppliers. Like, isn't that the name of any game? So, do your due diligence, and, patience is obviously key too.
Yeah. So, that leads obviously to the next one. I think we actually covered this one kind of, expectations with customers. I feel like we covered it in earlier, so I guess we'll just skip that.
Buyers are liars. That's what I would say.
Buyers are liars. Yeah, whoever said every customer is right and clearly never owned a business. The next checkpoint, margins and shipping. So, obviously me and Mike say this to our students. is 20 to 30% after shipping, right? Like if it's 20 to 30% before shipping, put it this way, right? This isn't always correct, but a good rule of thumb is to always assume shipping is going to come out to 10%. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but that's just like a good rule of thumb, right? So if you're getting 20% before shipping, then you're really only getting 10%. So, me and Mike, we have suppliers that we work with that'll give us 20% and shipping will be included. So it'll be a real 20%. We have suppliers where we get even a little bit better margins. I know, Mike, we have one supplier that, originally we were only getting like 20% and then we broke a certain amount of sales and now we're getting 35%. I love, yeah, guys,
Yeah.
20 to 30% is a really good margin. When you have a supplier that has 20 to 30% margins, MAP policy, and low competition, then you're putting yourself in a really high chance to be successful.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And, like you mentioned, we have this one supplier where, and I've seen this before, where suppliers pretty much have like a, what am I looking for? Like they entice you. I can't think. Incentive. That's what I'm looking for. They pretty much have like an incentive for their dealers where it's like, all right, if you get to, and for this one supplier, like I said, they started us off at 25%, which is pretty good, and they covered the shipping. And then after 30K in sales and one luxury feature or whatever, I don't even know what it was, they bumped you up 10%. And so now we're at 35% margins for products that are as cheap as the cheapest product is like $950, and as expensive as like $6,000. And the supplier doesn't sell a whole lot, but 35% is insane. And obviously the big thing that Jared mentioned was you need at least 20% after shipping. And something that we've told a lot of clients is don't be afraid to tell suppliers that their margins just don't work. Obviously we say it in a very respectful and a very respectful manner, but at the end of the day, you need to let them know that you're going to go out. It's not like you're listing their products and you're praying that customers find your website. You need to let them know, hey, like we have a marketing expense. We're going to push your products out on our advertisements. Like in order to maintain a certain level of profitability, we need higher margins. And honestly, I've had to ask suppliers for higher margins from what I remember only 3 times. And all 3 times that I've asked, I've used that same exact example, they've given it to me because, it's understanding that, listen, you're going to go out and spend money on my brand and you're going to increase my brand awareness. I need to give you a little bit of leeway. And, I've seen people getting rejected because sometimes suppliers don't have the room to work with, but it's worth the ask.
Yeah. And I definitely don't have 100% success rate like you, but, I've had it happen plenty of times where, again, same thing, guys, I wouldn't ask for better margins really until you've proven that you're going to make sales. But if you're making sales for a brand, they're going to see that obviously, right? And if you can prove that you can make more sales with better margins, which honestly you usually could, right? So I'll tell these brands pretty much what Mike said. Like I remember there was one brand that I pretty much was like, look, I want a 3% better margin. And in exchange for that, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to make that 3% back when we make you this many more sales, because we can spend so much more on the ads, but without better margins, it isn't worth it. And sometimes the suppliers will be idiots and still say no. But I've had plenty of suppliers, like Mike said, say yes and give us better margins. Now, again, we never really made a request until after we were making sales, but, it works. Another thing is that, don't be afraid to tell a supplier, like, look, these margins aren't going to work for me, when you're first getting started. We have clients that are so attached to suppliers, and the only reason they're so attached is because they haven't worked with as many suppliers as Mike and I have. Now, there's no reason for you to become attached to a supplier unless they're making thousands a month. And I'll tell you guys, people that have been following me on Instagram, they see me post my sales. If you've been following me since May, you saw me post a $680,000 month. Now it's June, and that same store is only doing $360,000. And one of the big reasons is because one of the suppliers that brought us in over $150,000 in May, we literally cut them from the store. And I told that to one of our clients. I was like, you're so attached over this supplier that hasn't made you money. If I was in your position, I would have cut off that supplier long ago. Not only that, but I literally have a supplier that's profited me, honestly, over the last few years, it's profited me 50, 60,000 profit. And I literally cut them off. And the reason why I cut them off is because they just don't have the inventory right now. But my point is that there's no reason for you to be attached to any supplier that isn't going to give you respectful margins. And like I said, I have literally suppliers that I've had that I've literally made over $50,000 with that I've cut off. So that just goes to show, because in the end of the day, you need certain things to operate at a high level. And that leads me to another point, is that if a supplier has MAP, but the MAP is not profitable, then that isn't MAP, because everyone's going to list above it. So it's going to be the same thing as not having MAP anyway. So again, even if the supplier has MAP and it isn't profitable, then it's not going to be worth working with that supplier, because if the MAP isn't profitable, then everyone has to list above MAP. And then it just becomes a price war from above MAP, which is essentially the same thing as not having MAP. So, don't get attached to any suppliers, especially if they're not making you money. There's really no reason to get them off the site or use them to close new suppliers and just move on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, Jay, it sounded like you don't always advise asking for higher margins with a supplier you just signed on with. If I kind of,
well, like I said, I usually don't advise it, but I will straight up say that, I'll straight up tell the supplier, like, I probably won't run ads for your products unless I get better margins.
Yeah,
straight up.
I would consider that requesting, like I said, because if they're going to give me 10 to 15%, I mean, like I said, there's a chance I really won't add them to my ads, because if I'm not going to be able to keep a nice profit line, like, I'm not going to bother. And so at that point, you might as well just be like, hey, this is my reason, like, take it or leave it.
and guys, again, another reason to never get attached is because some of these suppliers really are that stupid and disrespectful. Like, I had a supplier who was like, yeah, we're giving you 15% margins. And I was like, oh, great, after shipping? And he was like, no, 15% before shipping. I was like, so you're really giving us 5. And then after Shopify fees, that becomes 3. And then we give 2% to all of our new customers if they want to use it, which a lot of them do. So that becomes 1, which is really 0. So I was like, you're not giving us crap. And he got it, but he didn't get it. And I said, all right, well, we're not working with you then. So, don't underestimate how stupid some of these suppliers might actually be. And if they're saying things that don't make sense or their margins don't make sense, then, don't waste time trying to make sense of it. Just move on.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I mean, the only other thing I would say is don't be greedy. If a supplier gives you 30% margin or 25% margin after shipping, don't be like, oh, hey, you mind if we get an extra 5%? Because then you just look like the stupid one.
Exactly. One more thing on this topic before we move on to the last point is, obviously we discussed margins. Now, shipping, usually the suppliers should cover the shipping. If they don't, then you can work with freight forwarders like Freight Club. Now, that will be a pain in the ass, because then you're processing the order twice, right? You're processing the order with the supplier and with the freight company. Also, then you're in charge of the shipping, where if the supplier ships it, then they're in charge. But the benefits are sometimes you'll get better rates, and other times, sometimes you'll get suppliers that literally won't ship the product for you that can still make money. So it still might be worth it. But yeah, typically I like to just let the supplier handle the shipping.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Well said. The last bullet we have here is just Google ads and search ads. For our members that are watching, I have been trying to upload our brand new video on search/text ads, but I'm having issues for some reason doing that. So hopefully within the next 2 days, it should be up. We usually only use search ads for scaling, but I do go into a little bit of other cases that, we'll go ahead and launch a text ad. But wait and see. And if you're not in the program, you want to learn about text ads, they're super valuable. They go way beyond dropshipping. Obviously, they're a key component in scaling for dropshipping, but you can, when you learn how to make a text ad, and it's really not super complicated to learn, you can pretty much run ads for any business in the world. I think
Mike, for someone that may know internet marketing but doesn't know Google ads, why don't you give just a brief explanation of pretty much why Google ads are great and kind of like how we do Google ads.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, for anyone who doesn't really know how Google ads work, we're talking about Google here, which is the number one used search engine in the world. Okay. So think about when people are they want to buy a product, majority of the time they're going to Google, maybe Amazon, but Amazon excluded. They're going to go to Google and they're going to search for the product that they're looking to buy. And the main comparison that we make is obviously the Google versus the Facebook ads, because those are the two biggest ad platforms out there. And we talk about this time and time again, is that as I'm sure everyone has some experience with Facebook ads, and you're really just you're throwing a fishing rod in, and you're just waiting for a bite. You're making these creative ads. You're putting these cool emojis, and you're putting text in all caps to get a customer's attention. Like, at the end of the day, it works. People make money with Facebook ads, but think about how much difficult it is to convert a customer when they're on a website and their number one objective isn't to purchase. There's a million other things that you could do on Facebook, and now as an advertiser, you have to go out and catch the customer's attention and then sell to them. So it's almost like you're selling to them twice. Whereas Google ads, customers are finding you. They're searching the products that you are carrying on your website, and your ad is appearing. And to go a little bit deeper into it, I'm sure as all of our members know, or maybe you're not up to that point yet, to bring it another level deeper in terms of warmer traffic, because obviously people searching for your products is pretty warm traffic. The next level above that is people searching for the suppliers that you carry. So it's one thing to know that you want to buy a refrigerator. It's a whole nother thing to know the exact brand, the exact model refrigerator that you want to buy. So when you're spending, let's say your cost per click is $2 to $3, when you spend that kind of money, it may seem like a lot, but at the same time, we're talking about high ticket items. So you can spend $300 and maybe get discouraged, but on the $301st spent, you could make $400 profit, and next thing you know, you're $100 up. And so that's why Google ads are really just waves ahead of Facebook ads.
I mean, think about it like this, right? Like, Google ads in general are highly targeted. People, if you're spending money on ads, you're spending money on people that chances are want to buy. And as you test more suppliers and remove more keywords, every single dollar that you spend just has a better chance of leading to a sale. So always keep that in mind. Like I said, if you're someone that's part of our program and you just started running ads a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, understand that where you're going to be in 3 to 6 months from now compared to where you are today, it's going to be night and day. Like I said, you're not going to be wasting money on suppliers that suck, and you're not going to be wasting money on keywords that lead to people not buying. So, again, Mike just explained the general way we do it. We separate the branded campaign, the generic campaign this way. Let's just say we're selling laptops. We're gonna get everyone that looks up laptops for sale, along with everyone that looks up MacBook for sale. So you want to hit both ends. And yeah, again, I know Mike was gonna mention this before I cut him off, is that Google ads go a lot deeper than just drop shipping. Whether it's applying for a job or you find a local business. I was actually driving today, and I saw a cigar shop in like a weird location. And I was just wondering, if that even brings in customers. But, truth is, people may not see it because of the location. But if people see it online, then it will still bring in customers, right? Like, in the end of the day, if you want a physical store, as long as the store has parking and isn't like completely out of the way from, civilization, then it can still get customers because, people's eyes aren't in the sky. Their eyes are in their phones. Their eyes are in their computers. So, online marketing is all that really matters. Whether you're a drop shipper or a local business, you want to be tapping into Google because, again, as Mike mentioned, it's the number one search engine in the world. And if you have a business, then when people look up anything related to that business, you want to come up.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's perfectly said. Obviously there's a whole lot more that goes into it. Like, Jared, you mentioned the negative keywords, which obviously makes your spending very precise. If you want to learn more, check out the program. I'm sure the members watch, and you guys should have a decent grasp on it. But our whole point here is that these skills, when you build a high ticket e-com store, one, we think it gives you the greatest chance of success compared to any other type of drop shipping. I mean, I think if you just compare the business models at its face, it really is night and day. I mean, we're not going to get into it. We've lost thousands and thousands of dollars doing it other ways. We know this works. At the same token, the skills that you're acquiring from building and applying a high ticket store, it's really insane. Like building a website in it of itself is a high income skill. I had a friend who I was speaking to. We actually went out last Saturday night, and we were just talking, and he's actually very good at building websites. And I was like, listen, man, like you can really just go into a shopping center. You can approach a business that does well and doesn't have an online website, and they'll pay you $1,000 to build them a website. Just like that, you have a high income skill to build a website. Now imagine you take it even further. Now you say, I'll not only build you a website, but I will run Google ads to your store. So let's say Jared just mentioned the cigar shop. Now, not only are you building the cigar shop a website, but now you're saying, hey, anytime anyone within a 5 or 10 mile radius searches for whatever products you sell, anytime someone searches for a nice Cuban cigar, your ad is going to appear. And now you sell them the product, maybe you have a lifetime customer. My point is high income skills really do pay for themselves. And, obviously the Google ads method combined with high ticket drop shipping it's honestly kind of an insane formula when you apply the winning suppliers to the system that we have, and a system that, we know works because, like I said, we've done it so many times over and over again. If anything, I think you guys get my point.
You know what it is too, Mike? That it's like if you own a physical store, whether it's a cigar store or just any sort of physical store that's holding inventory, not only would you benefit from running ads, but you would also benefit tremendously from just selling it online. It's not going to cost you really that much to just sell the product online, even if you don't ship it, right? Just have them come and pick it up. Like one of my uncles is a manager for a Home Depot, and he's been with them, long before this whole e-com thing, blew up. And he said that his company, Home Depot, just by doing store pickup, but they sell it online, but they do store pickup. That's their specific store started doing an extra, I think he said $30 or $40 million per year just by offering customers to buy it online and pick it up at the store. So it's like, it does not inconvenience the owner at all because they're not even shipping the item to the customer. The customer is just buying it online and then coming and picking it up. Now, obviously, there's still 13 people watching. I do want to say this, guys. If you're watching this, you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. It's supposedly really good for the algorithm. I don't know much about the YouTube algorithm, but smash that like button to help us out. If you enjoy this video, if you enjoy working with us, I know a lot of people watching this are part of our community. So again, help us out that way.
Yeah. So I don't think we have a whole lot of questions, but let's kind of just pick off where we left off with the Oberlo question. So Mike P, baseball mounds, crying emoji. Honestly, Mike, I had the same reaction. I was like, I didn't even know he tried selling baseball mounds. That's got to be, he said baseball mounds. All I thought of was a ginormous bag of dirt being delivered to a baseball field. The piece of rubber. Sports Mafia, do you guys put frequently asked questions on your website for your products? So our website has frequently asked questions, obviously like shipping, return policy, product quality guarantee, like that. It sounds like you're asking more on a supplier to supplier basis. Me personally, I don't have questions written out with the answer. Usually just having descriptions and, specification sheets. Those are pretty much answering the frequently asked questions.
One thing we actually didn't talk about, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, that's honestly just as important, if not more important than product descriptions, is product reviews. So, if you're not converting at a high level, if you have a high ticket dropshipping store and you're not converting, I guess for some reason this topic wasn't asked, but I guess I'll cover it now, is how to create a high converting site. And I'll say it very quickly. One, people don't really look around the site they go straight to the product page. If they leave the product page, you already lost them. So how do you make the product page as convertible as possible? And I don't even know if convertible is the right word for this. Doesn't matter. Here's the three things you need. One, you need your shipping times listed right below the add to cart button, even if they're false, because obviously mine and Mike's are pretty false. Not that they're like completely false, but it says ships 1 to 2 days, delivers 2 to 7. That's not always true, because a lot of items are on back order. But having that will increase conversions. So that's one. Two, trust badges also under the add to cart button. Another thing, obviously, is the call box that we have, but that's like a patented type thing. And last but not least, something that's very important for conversions is product reviews. Now, whether you have a product that you know is selling or not, you want to throw in some product reviews, make them look legit. Read the reviews for similar products on Amazon. Don't copy and paste them, but write similar reviews. Put anywhere between 2 to 6 reviews will make a huge difference in your business. If you have an employee and your business isn't going that fast, have them write reviews all day. Just get product reviews on as many products as possible until eventually you have enough. Now one of my stores has over 800 reviews. So, obviously I don't have to really write fake reviews anymore. But even though when I launch new suppliers, I still try to put reviews on the new supplier because customers like to see that. They'll read that more than the description. And they don't even know that you can completely manipulate the reviews. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just about social proof, and things like reviews are real life social proof. And, I've had people say, like, don't you think it's unethical writing your own reviews? I understand the point. But at the end of the day, I'm not selling products that are horrible in quality. It's like if I know products are bad, I'm not going to sell them because that's just not a sustainable way to do it. Most of the products that you sell are really great. So, I don't really feel as bad writing fake reviews. And, like Jared mentioned, they go a long way. A lot of times customers will be on the phone. They'll be like, oh, yeah, like I saw this product had great reviews. Like, that's really great to hear. It's not like you're manipulating. It's kind of, you're just like, you're putting their mind at ease. They're, from a buyer's perspective, they're like, all right, I'm about to spend $1,000 on this website. Like, wow, I really hope they're legit, or I hope the product is good. The website's legit. The product is good. You're just kind of giving them a little extra push. Like, here you go. Like that. Like when you put your mind at ease.
Yep. So Jay Benz asked, you post a job on Craigslist or reach out to them? We always post on Craigslist. Like I said, if it's for a customer service rep, make sure to include that they have to send a voice recording. You don't want to waste your time with people that don't speak good enough English. If it's just for a product lister, then you don't really need a voice recording, but still you do want to interview them because I've had product listers in the past, not for this business, actually, for my eBay business. I had a product lister once that didn't speak good English, and I didn't know this because I didn't do my due diligence. And long story short, she messed up almost every listing of my store, and it pretty much put my whole store into turmoil. She was putting wrong pictures for the wrong titles. It was such a mess, and it led to so many customer complaints. It was just so miserable. So, save yourself the problems. Make sure you interview a few employees. Like I said, if it's a customer service rep, always have them send voice recordings. But yeah, post it on Craigslist. You're not reaching out. You're not going and looking for people. You're not going to go to the Philippines and pick someone up off the street. But put an ad out on Craigslist. Let them apply to you. Once you put the ad out, you'll have freaking 100 applicants within 2 days. So
for sure. Denise, LOL, Jared. Yep.
I forgot. I wish I knew. Denise, if you're still here.
No, you're right. I actually know what she was talking. I think you were talking about the supplier who you got 1% margin.
That's a true story. I actually met that supplier at an expo. And, one thing about expos is you leave feeling so confident, right? But then when you actually have to take all those suppliers and try to put them on your site and run ads, then that's when the reality comes in. So it's like that supplier was just one of the 30 that I closed. And he just gave terrible margins. I straight up had to tell him no. And unfortunately, we never ran the ads for their products. The products were in a great price point. They were like $1,200, $1,300. low competition. Like everything was perfect, but the margins. And in the end of the day, even if the competition is low, even if we can make sales quickly, if the margins are awful, there's only so much you can do.
Yep. J bands. If you had to do it all over, would you tackle specialized niches first or a saturated niche? Just want to know what's the best use of time. Jared, what do you think?
So again, J Bands, it's a great question. And again, I hate to answer this the same way as we answered your last question, but the unfortunate answer is both, right? And here's the reason. One of my best sellers ever, right? One of the reasons why it's made so much money is because one, there's not a lot of people drop shipping the product, but two, and this is something people don't think about, is there wasn't a lot of brands making the product. So not only were we one of the only drop shippers for this product, but we're literally one of the only people selling the product because we're the only drop shipper for the only brand of this specific product type. And because of that, we literally dominate the entire market for this specific product. And so if you were to say what's the best use of your time, I would say not only product types that have low competition from drop shippers, but product types that have low competition amongst brands. Now, like I said, people on our side, the drop shipping side, don't usually think like this. But from experience, I've seen that when there's not a lot of brands selling the product, then you can not only dominate the whole dropship space, but the entire space in general. Now, with that being said, we've had clients who sold product in completely saturated niches, like niches that are literally like, if you heard the niche, you would say, no way you can sell. But since they were the only people drop shipping that brand, they still made a killing. So the answer truly is both. Even if the niche is saturated, if you're the only person selling that brand, then you can make serious money.
Yeah, and I mean, Jared, you kind of just said it best. It works both ways. But at the end of the day, J bands, I think you also have to remember, you're asking about specialized niches. It's kind of tough to just sit there and think of specialized niches. It's like it's something that really comes a little bit. I don't want to say like naturally. I think sometimes you'll just be sitting there and you'll be like, wait, like a random product type idea will come into your mind. You'll be like, oh wow, like let me search it. Like it's not really something that you sit down at a computer and you're like, all right, let me think of a really, really unique specialized niche. Like it doesn't really work like that. I'm sure you can, and maybe it'll work for you. But when it comes to sitting down in front of your computer, just go down a rabbit hole. There are two different type of rabbit holes. You can go down like a Netflix TV show rabbit hole or a YouTube vlog rabbit hole, or you can go down a profitable rabbit hole like finding suppliers. And spend enough time doing supplier research, and everything will just be second nature to you. And the process will just get easier and easier.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really, Mike put it great. Like we really don't like sit there and just think specialized niches. We really I'm in a position right now in my exact place where I'm looking for new products, and I honestly am having mental roadblocks. Now I know I'm gonna find something new. Why do I know? Because I've been doing this for 3 years, and I always end up finding something new. But in the end of the day, when I reach roadblocks, I honestly do exactly what I showed in the course. I honestly just take it from the top as if I am literally starting from scratch. And if I find something worth calling, I call. And the truth is, right, when me and Mike say like great suppliers, like, yeah, we mean guys that can make $10,000 a month or more. But at the end of the day, if you close a supplier and it's making you $2 to $3 grand a month profit, I mean, that's still an extra $2 to $3 grand a month profit in your pocket. And, like I said, I call anything under $5 grand a month petty cash. But, when you have 4 or 5 suppliers making you $2 or $3 grand a month, that's 10 to 15 grand. That's an extra 10 to 15 grand in your pocket. So don't be super picky. Just look for suppliers that fit the criteria of, not a lot of people selling that product and good price points. Because at the end of the day, because we've tried it all. And till this day, we still have students that wow us with their products. And those are the ones that are doing the best. Group chat. The students that are posting the screenshots of big numbers are the ones that are wowing us. So just think about in terms of that, like what's going to wow Mike and Jared. But in the end of the day, again, don't be picky. Just like I said, look for the criteria that we give, which is people less than 10 sellers, over $1,000. Give it a chance, try it all, and you'll make money eventually. I don't want to guarantee it, but I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, Jared, you're breaking up a little bit, but you really just said it best. I guess I'll kind of leave you with this. And this is something that I've spoken about before, just in terms of perspective. You don't, while the goal is to have a supplier profit you 10 grand a month, you don't need to only focus on that. Jared called it petty cash, which I thought was pretty funny. But if a supplier is able to profit you $1,000 to $2,000 a month, like, listen, maybe it's not 10,000, but we'll take it, because now the great part about this business is the way that you're able to duplicate the process. So if you can find one supplier that profits you $2,000 a month, are you really going to believe that you can't find another one to profit you $2,000 a month? And at the end of the day, you need to master the system and then keep on duplicating it. We already have students who are thinking about starting a second store, when we're like, listen, we appreciate the ambition, but let's still focus on mastering the skill of high ticket ecom before we worry about opening up another store. Jared, is there anything else you want to add?
So IB asked, what's the going rate for a product lister? $3 to $4 an hour. So, if they, a funny story, we had a client who, a product lister, didn't list the product for 8 hours and said he was collecting data. Like, that is complete bull crap. Let them get away with that. If it's $3 to $4 an hour, then, I'm going to expect 40 to 50. I'm going to expect at least, I was going a little crazy, at least 10 to 20 products being listed per hour. So, don't let them get away with, 8 hours of collecting. There's no data to collect. Just list the product. So 3 to 4 hours and $3 to $4 an hour, and expect them to list, 10 to 20 products an hour.
He said he was collecting data. Yeah.
I was laughing so hard when I heard that. I was like, that is the biggest. I would have fired him right then and there.
Some things you just can't make up, but when you own a business, you'll hear things like that. Hey, we still got 16 people watching. We appreciate you guys just as much as we hope that you were able to get value from us. Like Jared said, if you liked the video, swing us a like. If you really liked it, swing us a comment. Let us know how we did. If you want to see us talk about something else more in another video, drop a comment. Let us know. Hit that like button. And yeah, if I think most people here are already in the program. Kudos to you guys for continuing to learn, educate yourself. We've been on this for over 100 minutes now. Everyone has been dedicating their time to just, further their knowledge, which is something I respect and appreciate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I want to get one message in before we signed off. Obviously, first of all, it's amazing that we still have 16 people watching after 102 minutes. I didn't know anyone wanted to hear me talk for this long, but obviously, if you are a member of our program, then this stream was dedicated to you. We wanted to thank you. If you're not a member of this program and you want to have streams dedicated to you, then join our program at havemorethanmoney.com. The link is in the description. If you want the free ebook that we wrote, again, havemorethanmoney.com. And if you want to just spend the rest of your life getting free value from us, then obviously you can keep tuning into our streams. But the truth is that the live streams are only going to get you so far, right? Like, we can keep talking basic drop shipping, basic Google ads, but that's only going to get you so far. The people that are actually in our program are the ones that are getting the most out of these streams. That's why it's like taking action is like a double win, a win-win, because the people watching this that are also part of the program are getting the most out of this. So,
and actually, you're actually able to apply the stuff that
yeah, a lot of the stuff that we talked about today is stuff that you can quickly and easily apply into your business and honestly increase your revenue tremendously. So if you're a drop shipper, obviously, if you want to learn more from us, join the program. But even if you don't, and if you have a drop shipping business and you watch this, then I highly recommend you apply all the things we mentioned in this video.
Because realistically, everything that we said, while it is valuable, it has zero value if you don't apply it. So, take in information, apply it. We appreciate all you guys, and we'll see you on the next live stream.
We off?